Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Zena Suissa. I'm a clinical psychologist and executive coach. My company is Resonance Executive and Team Coaching. We coach and train executives, leaders, teams, and we also work in corporate and institutional training. Today's episode is with a fascinating woman, Kelly Charles Collins, who I'll say again is a very fascinating woman who's done a lot of things. And with your permission, Kelly, I'd like to read a little bit about you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so Kelly is a lawyer and M.B.A. Great combination. She's a speaker, consultant, trainer, and coach. As an HR consultant, she's guided hundreds of organizations from small businesses to Fortune 100 companies to discover the hidden truths about their workplace. As an attorney with more than 20 years of experience, she conducts workplace investigations and provides training and coaching programs to help companies reduce bias, eliminate harassment, and banish incivility. She's also written a book that I'd like to get back to a little bit later. So welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, really. I'm so happy you're here. Kelly, I found some areas that we have of interest, in common interest. And the first one is unconscious bias. So if you would, a very brief definition of unconscious bias.
So unconscious bias are the things that we have based on our experience, our knowledge, where we grew up, our ethnicity. It's these little things in the back of our brain that help us to determine how to react in certain circumstances. And they're not things that you are consciously aware of. Our brains, we get 11 million bits of information a day, but we can't process that information. We can only consciously process a very, very tiny bit of it. So if you're in a situation and something happens, it's your unconscious that's triggered to be able to make a snap judgment about whatever decision you need to make at that moment.
That's great. So we can segue right to how do you make people more aware of their unconscious bias? And we'll talk about the workplace.
Okay. So in the workplace, I do training and I use pictures a lot. So for example, I will put up a picture of someone who is a Muslim, who is praying, or I will put up a picture of a Black male and a white male, both in hoodies, and ask people to tell me what their reactions are, their immediate reactions about that. I may put up something about Black Lives Matter, or bring a couple who is a homosexual couple, so that people can really understand that they have these snap judgments. One of the other things I talk about is the whole elevator theory, right? Where people walk into elevators and they either brace themselves because they see someone in the elevator that they don't want to get in with them, or what you see a lot is they show a woman in an elevator, a man comes in and the woman grabs her purse. And is that unconscious bias? Is it discrimination? Really what's happening is that based on some experience that you've had, some stereotype that you've heard of, something that's been ingrained in you, you have this reaction because you don't have the time to really process everything. So your unconscious takes over and kicks in and creates this reaction, which may be totally different than you would act if you were consciously making a decision about your reaction.
So that's very much awareness. You're helping them become more aware. Are there any specific interventions that you will integrate into the workplace?
Interventions such as making sure that people have conversations. When I train, I tell people this is not rocket science. Unconscious bias is not rocket science, but what it is a conversation that people don't like to have because they're fearful. Because if I say you have a bias, people take it to mean that they're racist, they're sexist, they're homophobic, something like that, right? Going all the way to prejudice, which bias can go to prejudice. So I explain to them, one of the easiest ways to do that is to have conversations with people. We sit with people at work, with people in our buildings. We have no idea who these people are. And we make these assumptions about them. And if you had a conversation with them, you would be shocked. I'll tell you an example. I just did a presentation in Atlanta, an unconscious bias. And one of the things I was talking to them about was, the fact that I'm from Jamaica, and that may be an affinity to some people. And so it may make them have a connection. And I talked about, naming my son a certain way so that no one would be able to tell that he was Black from his name. After the presentation, I had 4 people come up to me to tell me, oh, I'm from Jamaica, And then I had another woman come up to me and say to me, Kelly, I wanted to tell you, I did the same thing when I was naming my daughter.
Oh.
If I had not shared those things, they wouldn't have known those things about me, and they would not have felt comfortable to come and share those things with me. So it really all starts with a simple conversation. That's the easiest way to raise awareness.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent. I'm glad you're doing that work. I think it's such important work, Another area of interest, and to me as well, is incivility and bullying. So what is incivility?
Incivility in its simplest terms is people being rude. People being rude, people being discourteous. The climate that we have right now, people are more apt to do that, right? To be rude to you, to be discourteous. In the workplace, it could be somebody yelling at you. It could be somebody ignoring you. It could be somebody dressing you down in front of, other employees. They want to have a conversation with you about something that you did wrong, but they do it in front of everyone. It could be electronic. We know there's a lot of cyberbullying, which is a huge issue. Yeah. And focus a lot on that with regards to teenagers because it is rampant amongst teens. But if we look on Twitter, we look on Facebook, adults are doing it also. And so that whole type of just not having general regard and respect for people, being uncivil to people, that's what it is. I mean, again, these concepts, it's funny that, these concepts have become so large and looming because of what's going on in the world right now. But there are things that have happened all over. They've been happening forever. And if we really just sit back and think about it, none of it's rocket science.
Yeah.
Really about being respectful, open, having conversations. I tell people in my training, it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Yeah. This is great. And without going too far, but there's a tremendous cost to having incivility in the workplace,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. When people are uncivil, take, for example, if someone was rude to you, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
It causes depression. It causes, anxiety. It causes people to not show up for work. Who wants to be in that environment? Who wants to be bullied at work? Who wants to be yelled at work? Who wants to deal with rude people? So it's not just the personal cost for the person who is being, treated uncivilly. It has an effect on the business. It also has an effect on people around them who see it, hear it, and it causes a lot of stress and angst in the workplace. It really is a disruptive situation in your workplace.
Yeah, yeah. So taking it one step further, conflict will result in incivility, and we have so much. Is there any particular, maybe one intervention that you'd use? I know you believe in talking and listening.
Right.
Would that be about the same for incivility?
Yeah, and if you really think about it, Dr. Zena, a lot of things get solved through conversations, right? Because we have these misperceptions, we have these misconceptions about people. Our perception is our reality, but it may not be the truth.
Yeah.
So, some other things you can do. Some workplaces have ombudsman programs, or they have mediation programs, peer-to-peer mediation programs, where they would get the people together and really try to resolve the issue that way by having someone neutral, help to facilitate the conversation. So that's another way. You'll hear a lot in schools now, and sometimes in workplaces where they talk about having safe spaces for people to go and have conversations. They also have affinity groups. So if you have affinity groups in your organization, that also helps because you have other people who are like you, who you can speak to. But again, you have to be careful of that because you don't want to create all these affinity groups, and now we're creating all of these separate cliques of people. And then we go back to the whole thing of people not communicating across, ethnic lines, racial lines, cultural lines.
Right. Thank you for that too. So now I left teaching last year. I left teaching in McGill last year, and I miss teaching. However, you touch an area which is really dear to my heart: perseverance.
Okay.
So, if you will, and this is something that you said: your road to greatness and success is paved by perseverance. How do you help people so that they don't give up, they don't surrender, as you say?
Because for me, failure is not death. Only death is.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So if you wake up every morning, you have the ability to change whatever happened yesterday, to change what happened in the moment. And we have to keep going. We think about things. If I'm having a bad day, right? Oh, the world is going to end. It's horrible. And then I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, oh, today's a great day. I move on. And so when we're talking about perseverance and moving forward, part of it is taking an inventory. I had a coach once, and she was talking to me about my business, and she said, "Oh, Kelly, I want you to sit down and write out your skills and your accomplishments." And I was like, oh, "That'll be, there's not much,
Yeah.
right? There's not much." And so I actually sat down and I was like writing out all the things that really going back in my life, to the going to college at 16, getting my master's degree while I was pregnant, taking my son to work and putting him under my desk because that's what I needed to do in order to make sure I got to work and got paid so I could take care of him. All those little things that we don't think about that we go through in our life. You have to really take an inventory, and then you'll see that, you have really persevered. Your road to where you are is really paved with perseverance. And until we die, every day we have the opportunity to get up and do something different and do something, to establish our legacy.
And even if we're at the point, and I've seen many students and in the workplace, at failure, we can get out of failure. And you talk about failure to fearlessness. I love that, going from failure to fearlessness, which is quite a stretch, Could you say just maybe a little bit about that?
Well, I think about my own experiences. If I think about failure, I practiced law for 10 years, and one day I went on vacation and I came back and I found out I no longer had a job, and I could have just been devastated by the whole thing. And I was, but at the time we had just gotten married and I had planned our wedding, and I was like, okay, well then I'll start a wedding and event planning business. So I did that, right? And I did that for years. And then, when I felt it was time to get back into the corporate workplace, I went back into the corporate workplace, and then I left there to go back into the practice of law. And so it's not without fear. Just like everybody else, I have my fears. And my biggest fear is financial insecurity. So I always worry about those things. But we have to move forward. If you get up in the morning, what are you going to do? Just because something didn't go right yesterday, then today, what are you going to do? Just go back to bed? You have to get up eventually. The only way you don't get up is when you die. So you have to do something.
Kelly, you're fearless. And with Fearless, you wrote a book. And the name of the book, I have to read the name: Ace Your Workplace Investigations, a step-by-step guide for avoiding friction, covering your assets, and earning employee trust. Congratulations. I know it came out last month. It's on my way. I'm going to be reading it. I encourage everybody to read it. Would you like to talk a little bit about your book?
Sure. So my book is, as you said, Ace Your Workplace Investigations. As an employment lawyer for the past 20 years representing companies, I have been intimately involved in, conducting these investigations or litigating, trying cases after someone has conducted the investigation. And in training people, I get asked these questions all the time. Well, what am I supposed to do? What questions do I ask? How do I know who I'm supposed to interview? What do I do with the documents? And so I thought that with all of it, I would write this book. And I wrote it for two things. One is really to help people with the process, to put the process in place, to understand that it is not as daunting as it seems. But really the focus of the book is to get HR professionals, business owners, management to really reframe their thinking about investigations. They're costly, they're burdensome, they take time. Nobody wants to do them. But if they look at what the benefits of being able to figure out what's going on in your workplace so that you can cover your assets, addressing employee issues, deterring inappropriate behavior, reducing the number of complaints, because if you handle the issues, then there's nothing for people to complain about. If you look at it in that way, which is what I want them to do after reading the book, then I think that, this whole process will just be another thing that they do in their job. It's one of the other obligations that they have. And if they do it well, they do it in a standardized way, then it's not as burdensome as they believe it to be.
That's excellent. To my viewers, these episodes are called How Does This Resonate With You? And I hope there'll be some comments, because personally, I find you fascinating. I've told you that before. I think you're a fascinating, enterprising woman. And thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Zena.
Thank you.